Welcome, everyone, to another episode of IT Visionaries. And today we have a special guest. She is the EVP and Chief Information Officer at a small little company called Prudential Financial. Stacey Goodman, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Albert. It's good to be here. Yes, a very, very small company, Prudential.
Yes, we looked it up on LinkedIn. Surprisingly linked to us. No, I'm just kidding. Prudential's a massive company. I think most of us have seen your commercials for sure. We looked it up on LinkedIn. It's over 26,000 employees. But for those listening, if you're not familiar with Prudential Financial, Stacey, can you tell our audience what it is you guys do?
And before I do, I want to know if you saw our most recent commercial.
Well, I don't know. Which one is it?
Well, you've probably seen our PGIM investment one, but our most recent one is talking about Who's Your Rock. You should watch it. It's awesome.
All right. I'm going to go check it out. Who's Your Rock? Make note of that. We'll probably link it in the show notes below.
All right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about Prudential. So we're a 145-year-old company, and we started with life insurance. In fact, today we are global in over 40 countries, and we are still a leader in life insurance. But now we are one of the largest asset managers, which most people don't know. And we have about $1.5 trillion in assets under management. And if you put that in perspective, we are probably the 13th largest GDP in the world. And so as the CIO of a company like Prudential, it's a lot of fun to be part of something so special.
Yeah. Listen, for those of you guys that just didn't hear her, say that number again. How many assets under management?
$1.5 trillion.
$1.5 trillion. I want to say a small percentage of that is mine. It's a very small percentage. Prudential. I am a Prudential customer. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. You know, one of the things that we've learned over the years at IT Visionaries, or over the seasons, is one of the biggest, hardest things to do is to modernize, digitally transform massive companies. But you guys are in a different boat too, because you have the extra layer, which is you're in the finance game or the FINRA game, heavily regulated industry, which makes it a little bit more challenging what you guys are going through. Talk about what you're attempting to do there at Prudential to up-level that customer experience, because as we know, every company is going through some transformation of some sort. I think financial companies are probably lifting it a little bit harder right now. But give us an idea of what the company is going through, given the way the markets continue to move and modernize, and people want better, faster experiences. You know, I'm sure all these things you guys talk about just about every meeting.
You know, it's there's so much going on, and I don't even know where to start. But let me talk about just the change. You know, when I started, we actually have an application that was built in 1968. Okay, now that's before the man stepped on the moon. You know, that's it's pretty a wild stat there. So we are definitely on a journey to modernize our environment significantly, and we're taking multiple tacks on that, Albert. At first, is to just build some foundational tech capabilities, which include both the what and the how. So, you know, one, what are we trying to solve for, which is improving the customer experience, you know, really helping our customers, improving the experience for our employees as well. But when we think about, you know, tech transformation, it's also about the how. We're thinking about expanding agile techniques and processes more broadly, how we deliver core technology services, how we deliver to the customer so that we can test and learn, because we really want to improve the customer experience. So we're doing a lot more around design thinking and using those techniques to better the experience for a customer. And just to give you an idea, you know, how much better it is, we have just built, with the help of Salesforce, online self-service, which we couldn't do before. You couldn't change your beneficiary before calling into a contact center. And now through Salesforce platform and just our own development, we've been able to sort of automate a lot of capabilities and provide kind of a better experience. We're also doing things like data science techniques, which we did some of, but we're really putting it what I call on steroids. So things that used to take, you know, days to do, like underwriting, now take seconds. And so we're getting better at kind of building foundational capabilities, changing the way we work so we can deliver faster, smarter, and a much better customer experience. There's a lot going on, but if you think about Prudential, just like any major company, we have a lot of technology that was built in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and we have to manage that while we're starting to improve. And if I may, Albert, we're also focused on innovation and really differentiating as well, because we look at technology as a game changer. One of our aspirational goals is to be tech forward. So that was a lot there, but I wanted to share that with you.
No, I mean, I know what you're saying because I mentioned in our pre-call, but for our audience that wasn't there, that I'm a Prudential customer, that my very first job used Prudential retirement investing so that I could put money away. And of course, they would manage my portfolio for me. I got to pick a couple different funds and so on. So that's how I got into Prudential side. But you hit on a really great point in regards to how you have to modernize with the customer, because finance is one of those industries where once you have your money there, like I'm telling you, it's been there since 2006. I've not moved the money to another servicer. And when I go, let's say, open new accounts or get new opportunities from different jobs, like typically they open an account, like all of a sudden I'm access to Vanguard, all of a sudden I'm access to Fidelity. Those are obviously competitors. But, it's one of those industries where people, like, winning a customer is so important because the customer probably is not going to move. Talk about that, like, drive, like, because that's an interesting factor to make sure you modernize that experience to get that next wave.
Well, obviously, we definitely, the experience is the differentiator, right? You want a good experience. So you say your money's been here since 2006. I don't know about you, but I like to go on and check that my money's there almost.
I check it every month. Every month.
You go month, I may go daily. But kidding aside, you're at the point where you not only want to check it often, but you want to check it from anywhere. And
That's right.
So, things happen along the way. That experience has to be good. How many times do you forget your password? And I got to tell you, I forget mine all the time because I'm constantly changing them. Because obviously, having responsibility for info security, we think about putting the proper controls in place. And I personally change all of my passwords often. So now, all of a sudden, I'm somewhere. I have my phone. I need to check something, and the first thing I do is mess up my password. So, like, that experience to be able to reset your password, be able to look at your kind of balance every day from wherever you are is really important. I think that retains a customer, that experience, just those little things.
Certainly the simplicity of accessing the information that that is yours, that certainly makes it easy. We checked it out on LinkedIn. It looks like you started this role in 2019. When you first got to Prudential, and it's something that new executives often talk about. It's like, you got to lift up the hood. You got to almost take inventory of what you got. You're mentioning that you're sitting on an application from 1968, potentially, that you have to modernize. Talk about, what did you see? What did you see as the opportunity? How did you react when you first sat down? Like, were you scared? Were you excited? Like, give us an idea.
I was excited. I mean, look, Prudential is a great company, Albert. It is a fantastic company, high integrity. So the opportunity to help them, when I came in, but now help us, I shouldn't say them, us. The opportunity to help us change the experience and the perception from being a rock and a solid, stable company where you keep money to also being a great customer experience is just really exciting. So how could you not want to join and be part of that process, right? So to me, to be part of something so game-changing and transformational is exciting.
How did you yourself think about prioritization? Because with a company of that size, obviously custom built applications, vendor applications, like, you got everything, right? You got vendor tools, you got custom built tools, you got integrated tools, you have tools that need to be integrated. Like, I'm sure there was a lot of requests, let's say, of you in the first 90 days. How did you go about prioritization? What did you think about in regards to, like, hey, what do we tackle first?
Well, you have to have multiple threads going. First, we have to look at the core platforms. You need to have the capabilities in order to change. So I mentioned agile, but you also need a modern infrastructure, right? How do you get to market fast if you don't have kind of DevOps capabilities, the ability to kind of test and learn quickly, right? So we can work in an agile way, but you need all of the technology tools to do that fast. So that's kind of one thread we definitely were going to focus on. And we've done a lot of work in that space. The other and the primary reason is we are a business. We're not, I want to be a technology company one day. I think we'll get there. But I think what we want to be is tech forward towards our business outcomes. And so since we are a business, we want to be the best. So we have to think about the outcomes, and we prioritize the outcomes that are most important to serving our customers. And that's what we focus on. And that's how we prioritize. So when we think about it, there are core foundational capabilities we're working on. And in parallel, we think about our customers. So Albert, tell me what you want me to focus on next.
I don't know. I feel like as a customer, I'm always thinking about how do I get even bigger returns. So I guess being able to access more funds, more product blends, maybe some automation investing. I think that's very popular right now, where people like robo advisory tools to like do it for them a little bit. Sure, cryptocurrencies probably like when I think of the next wave of investor, like they're probably going to want a blend of, let's say, equities and possibly crypto. I'm just naming things off the top of my head. But those are things I think about. Like when I choose where to put my money, I want, even if I choose the most conservative blend possible, I think people like optionality. I think they like to know that they could be more aggressive if they wanted to, that they could, even if it was like, I think about when I put away money and there's like options to say like, hey, 10% goes here, 10% goes here, 10% goes here. Like I can self-diversify. I'm just thinking about like, so it's like a lot of optionality and control is, I guess, the common theme between what I'm saying.
Well, that goes back to self-service. We want to give you capabilities so you can do a lot of things yourself. But ultimately, we have a secret weapon, which are our advisors, right? We have a big advisory capability. So once you've played around a little bit and think about what you want to do, you can speak to an advisor who can help customize. Because the robo advisors are getting better. I won't say they're great, but as your thinking matures, you may want a little advice along with the digital experience. So you definitely want to self-serve. You want to see your money every day. You want to do it everywhere. You want to be able to run scenarios in like seeing what your balances will look like with this product or what it will look like in 20 years, et cetera. You may want to do all those cool things and get some advice, but ultimately we combine that whole continuum, and that's where our goal is, not just to provide the digital with the advice is really where I think we can differentiate.
That's interesting that you brought that up, because that is definitely something that we observed, and we've talked with different CIOs, CTOs on this show, as they talked about, hey, there's like this evolution over time where let's say help, like we just said help. It was like you had to get in line into a call center. So that was a bad experience. Then there was the creation of knowledge bases. You can look it up yourself. But then what we started realizing is, well, especially like in the world of finance, I don't know what I'm reading. So if I don't know what I'm reading, how can I help myself? So then I had to get back in line or back in chat. So I think you definitely, especially where your company sits, it sits in a place where the reality is most people probably don't know. Like they don't know enough, right? So they do need some type of advisory. I don't think knowledge journals and articles are enough to get a customer, into a good decision that they feel good about.
Well, I think there's a spectrum. There are some people that are savvy and can do it themselves or need simpler products, but then there are folks as you graduate or begin to have more complexity to what you need, the advice is there, which is different. But I will tell a funny story because you triggered something. When I was much younger, and we talked about this before we started, my father said the same thing, put away a few bucks every year. You won't even notice it. And I did, but I also thought I could do my own taxes too. So one year, a couple of months before, right, knowledge base, I read all about doing my own taxes, and the form looked pretty simple, and I did it and I put it aside. And about 2 days before they were due, I took out the real form and then filled in. And when I went to reconcile, the numbers didn't add up. And I was pulling my hair out. Thank God for my father and his accountant. So I filed an extension, and then he did my taxes for me. So it goes back to the advice factor. It can look simple, but it does help to have that kind of guidance a little bit, because you may not know how to do your taxes completely yourself, even if you read a book. And you may not be getting everything you need. So having that advice continuum is great. And so that's kind of how I see it.
No, that I 100% agree. And when you think about for yourself right now, what are some of like the technologies that you're really excited to bring into like the existing customer experience, or maybe it's the service experience? It's one of those things where we always like hearing directly from the CIOs and CTOs themselves, like, hey, I'm really bullish on this. Curiously for you, is industries or implementations, microservices, what are some of the things that you're really excited about possibly bringing to the business portfolio?
Well, I said some of the basic foundational stuff, like, moving to the cloud, like building total native cloud-based applications, and moving to a full DevOps model, which I'm really excited about, which we have underway. That's pretty cool in my mind, and building common microservices so that we can get speed to market and delivery of applications. But also, and I'll use Salesforce as an example here, is financial cloud. The financial cloud's been great for us because we've built a whole self-service experience, especially in our contact center, where customers can do simple tasks, and we're building upon that. And we're using some of the cool features like biometrics that we like, and some of the other analysis features that comes in financial cloud to help us. We think heavily about data science as well, and building capabilities around AI in particular, sort of machine learning, natural language processing like chatbots and stuff. So a whole host of things we're working on that are very cool and exciting for us.
Yeah, the future. It's interesting so when I think of, because I think more like probably just consumers, right? Where a lot of consumers are probably, there's kind of like, we kind of want things just done for us a little bit, like I mentioned, robo advisory. And that usually starts, like you said, with the foundation in data science, machine learning, some type of, artificial intelligence or programmatic algorithmic trading computations. Do you see that as like, is that like a big request among finance customers, or are they more interested in, of course, everyone's interested in security, but I didn't know like where that weighs in like people's priority. I'm guessing security is still number one. Like, don't ever lose my money. Like that's
well, security is number one. Prudential's got high scores when it comes to being the rock and being very solid and high integrity kind of thing. But what people do want is they want the ability to do simple things like, be able to log in and check that their money is there, right? I mean, it sounds silly. That is security, is just checking every day, because in a volatile market, being able to do that, or going online and making requests. Life insurance is different than other financial products, life insurance and annuities. And that they want to be able to access the advisor. So they want both. It's a little different than what you describe in banking, where people go into the wealth management business and their financial advisor. We really are more about kind of a suite of products, and we're built upon kind of the financial wellness side of it. So ensuring, the customer's financial security. It's a little different than maybe some of the other financial companies that you've spoken with.
For anyone who's, let's say, thinking about, because our listeners tend to blend on the career spectrum from very beginner, like software developers and engineers that are just starting to learn and start their careers, to actual CIOs that are also operating big teams. I don't know if any teams are as big as yours, but like they're operating big teams themselves. What are some of the consideration sets that are a lot different, I guess, in this industry or this product portfolio that maybe other companies don't think about? Like, because that some of the concepts you mentioned, I think some software companies or tech people will be like, that sounds easy to do, but for your industry, it's hard to do. Give us an idea of what you're facing, like what challenges and roadblocks that you guys that you're in your team are constantly innovating out of.
Scale and complexity, and are two that come to mind. Scale. I mean, if you think about the size of our assets or liability book, it's extremely large. And the complexity of products we have. I mean, people think about life insurance and they think about a simple product. We have quite a few products around 145 years, although I don't think there's a 145-year-old policy. And if we sold you that one, Albert, we definitely, if someone sold you that, we need you to come over to Prudential. But kidding aside, if you think about the complexity of life insurance and annuities, it's different than banking products, right? But if you go to a financial advisor, it's simple. It's probably similar to a prudential advisor. We're trying to do what's best for you and your current situation, whatever your needs are. So it's really about complexity and scale of insurance and annuities. It's a different animal.
So one of the things that you certainly are, this problem is facing you, which is facing a lot of tech leaders today, is this idea around attracting talent. Attracting talent is one of the big major challenges. For a lot of companies, especially in the tech development world, whatever it may be, people like to go with like a lot of young engineers think they want to go to, hey, fast moving, move fast, break things type companies. I don't know how many things you're allowed to break at Prudential. I'm assuming it's not that many. But give us an idea of what like your industry, Prudential, how you handle recruiting, because it is certainly the most coveted skill. Let's say web and engineering talent is extremely coveted. Just about every company in the world is building a software layer that customers interact with. So you're fighting that superstar engineer. Hey, it's not just Prudential that wants them. It's every person in your industry and every person in every other industry that wants this person as well. Talk about how you guys are approaching recruiting and retention of talent.
Albert, I think a little differently. I think this is the new frontier. Take banking, for instance. It's been differentiated. It's been disrupted. There's every kind of startup or fintech, and they're competing with the banks. And the banks themselves have already built a lot of the technology, whether it's kind of go way back with simple ATM technology to now where, you don't even have to go to the ATM if you don't want to, right?
Right.
Venmo, name it, PayPal, whatever you want to use, or even kind of Zelle, Bank of America. You don't even have to kind of touch a branch in any way, and you can do it all mobile. But insurance, annuities, our industry has so much opportunity to really differentiate. So think about coming in and really testing your skills as an engineer. Can you solve the challenges we have with the legacy infrastructure and help us differentiate? Those are rare opportunities today. So we're attracting a lot of talent because we also have an advantage, like some of the bigger companies, where we are committed to making the investment because we want a better customer experience. I also think that, even though it's really hip and cool to go to some startup all the time and it feels like a great vibe, ask some of the folks out there in your next interview what it's like for them. When you come to Prudential, we have such a strong culture. Our employees are really important to us. So if you think about the culture, the investment and commitment to technology, and to be on the forefront of potentially being a differentiator and using technology to disrupt, that's a lot of fun for people. So yes, it's corporate. It's not a startup, but I can't show you, but I am wearing jeans right now. So I'm kind of in my comfort zone, right? I get to blend. So it's fun. It's a fun environment. We're really changing everything, and we're investing. So it's just as much fun for an engineer to do engineering problems here as elsewhere. But you could be part of the future of helping Prudential lead the way in being tech forward and disrupting the industry a bit.
Hey, listen, I know exactly what you were just mentioning before. I've lived most of my career in the startup world where it's not as glamorous as some of the movie shows or TV shows or blogs make it out to be. It's definitely a big challenge. And
now you're at Salesforce, big company, right? Big company. So big companies can be cool, right?
So real quick, mission is, so we make the podcast for Salesforce, but I'm not actually a Salesforcer, although I do work very closely with the Salesforce team.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're working really for a big company.
exactly. Yeah, we podcasting definitely not as much pain, I would say, as engineering. You know, the biggest challenge I always think about engineering is like, hey, you have a hypothesis, you build it, but like it's very possible it doesn't work, and you got to go find that. So it definitely takes a different type of person. I I want to get an idea of how, one of the things that you have to do, you mentioned earlier, is like how secure, like security is number one, right? How much, I guess, time, energy goes into like checking, QAing products before they go live to the customer? Because this might be shocking maybe to some of like our engineering audience members that like are used to like move fast, break things, like they're willing to ship code into like the actual customer environment and it just broken and they just roll it back. Like, I don't think that's possible for Prudential. Like, I don't think you could do that.
Well, I don't think anybody really does that. Even Salesforce. Could you imagine if we're using a Salesforce product and they say, we're going to roll out a new release in an hour, and then they call us back, the next day and say, oh, we got to give you a new release. They don't. They don't do it. So even if you're working for the Microsofts of the world or the Amazons, whoever, what you're doing is you're testing your software pretty quickly, and you're using new modern techniques. I talked about DevOps,
Yep.
which allow you to kind of build the whole test capability into the process itself, right? So if you think about how we develop software today and we implement those modern practices, you're testing as you're going. And if something doesn't work, you can quickly change it. But generally, we're not going to push out something to the customer without having some thorough testing. The concept of QA, is something we want to be built into the process, not to be separate over time. And that's one of our ambitions, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to iterate through. Because when I first started working, it could take weeks and weeks, and I'm not talking about Prudential, but years ago, it take weeks and weeks to really test something. So your cycles were longer. Now we can release much more frequently and really test the software quicker. So I think that's a less of an issue. But going back to recruiting, if anybody wants to come, we're doing some cool things, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of the fun of it and what's changed in the tech world a bit.
Yeah. And how about, one of the things we always want to do with our guests too is kind of learn a little bit about your own career path. Obviously currently serving as EVP, CIO, Prudential, but we looked you up on LinkedIn. You've definitely spent quite a bit of your career in the financial services, FINRA, insurance. I think that we bucket that all together.
Yeah.
Industry. How did you get your start? What were you most fascinated in? And give us an idea of how you got your start down this path.
Oh, wow. I don't want to go that far back, but I joke because I came out of school and I wanted to be like a rocket scientist. I thought I'd go to Grumman Aerospace and, build the next F-14. Now I'm dating myself with Top Gun and everything, but you laugh, but I thought I was going to be an aerospace engineer, and it was the most boring job. And that's probably
I wouldn't have guessed that like I wouldn't have guessed aerospace engineering is boring, but
for some people it wasn't, but it wasn't dynamic enough. And at least early on in my career, all I did was fix code, right? I'd sit there, and if there was a bug, they'd send it my way, and I'd have to fix the code and put it in. But it was the way they worked. It wasn't dynamic. It wasn't exciting. We did a lot of government contracts. And I shouldn't say anything bad about Grumman Aerospace because they gave me my first job, which was great. Right. But I left pretty quickly because I knew it wasn't for me. But of course, I thought I was then going to go become an actuary. And then a very, good friend and recruiter said to me, Stacey, you're not going to be happy there. Come with me. And he took me down to Salomon Brothers. And I was hooked. I didn't even know what a debt or an equity product was, but walking out on the trading floor, seeing the environment, the dynamic nature of the business, I was hooked. And I've stayed in financial services since. So, and I've worked technology on the business side. I've enjoyed the mix, but it's always been in the tech field, applying technology.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can see that because I remember being so I'll date myself too. It's okay. But when I remember as a kid, when I first saw like the scenes from Wall Street, it just seemed like this at a pace that
Yeah.
was like relentless. Like this pace is like, the way they always depict it in movies. I don't know if that was actually like that on the trading floor, but it was always like people are yelling stuff and trying to close deals and blah, 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 obviously that's how it's depicted. Now, when you see, like my kids, they've seen when they show like on CNBC or something like that, and they show the trading floor, it looks just quiet, like just people looking at computers.
Yeah, it's different because you're right. You're right. Probably trying to think timing, but not that long ago, everything has been automated. So a lot of stuff is done electronically and algorithmically. So it's very different than, when you used to have to yell and have pure outcry system on the floor. Or if you were on a trading desk, there's a lot more that's done digitally today. So it is different. And I guess I picked the right fields because it's all tech driven.
There you go. Stacey, I want to say it's been awesome having you on the show and sharing some of the things that you guys are up to at Prudential and some of the methods that you're using to modernize and meet the customer and elevate the experience. But before you go, it is time for the lightning round. The lightning round is brought to you by the Salesforce platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Stacey, this is where we ask you questions outside of the world of work so that our audience can get to know you a little bit better. You ready?
Uh-oh. Yes, I guess so.
All right. You've mentioned that you're a golf fan.
Yes.
Tell me the best score you've had on any given round.
78.
And that what was par?
That's above par. But that's a good score.
Yeah, no. What was par for the course? 72,
Oh,
70?
72. Sorry. My best score was 78. Par for the course is 72.
Dude, that's a good score.
Yeah, that's a good score.
That's a dang good score.
I'm not as good anymore.
How long have you been playing golf?
Not that long.
How did you pick it up?
I don't know. My father put a golf club in my hand when I was young, and I used to hit some balls now and then just to kill time when I was waiting for him. But I really got the itch when I got older and thought that it would be a great opportunity to kind of meet some people when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's about, maybe 15 years ago. And I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I started picking up a club and I got addicted. It's a very addicting sport. I know it's hard to believe because you're trying to hit this tiny ball and it's frustrating, but you hit one good hit and it brings you back again.
So I've met multiple golfers, and I always say that they always say it's addicting and fun. And I was like, but every time I've seen you play, you look miserable. Like most people are cursing themselves. Like,
it's one of those sports that you really want to master, but you can't, especially if you work. And even if you don't work, the pros make it look so easy, but they play all the time, every day. And they've played for years and years. And so it's a sport you never master. It's that great round that you have. It's that fun time you have with some friends or family. It's just a great feeling. And you're outdoors. I work in an office, so spending 4 hours outdoors on a weekend is fantastic.
There you go. Besides golf, what do you like to do for fun?
Golf. I have my family. I like spending time with my family. I like to travel a little bit, although that's not happening these days. And I love my job. So that's probably where I spend most of my time.
So along the way, we often meet mentors that help guide us down the path. Who are some of the more influential people in your life that have helped you?
I mentioned my father. My father really helped me in an odd way. He taught me the value of a lot of things, even though I probably rebelled against it when I was younger. But he really taught me a lot of good stuff. And, I think perseverance is one, that people would say for me. I'm pretty resilient, and I drive, and my father.
That is awesome. And, for yourself, when you think of, are you a tech person? Are you a gizmo person?
Yes.
All right. Tell us recent piece of technology or gizmo that you've encountered that you think is going to be influential or like groundbreaking in maybe just, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking to everybody, just groundbreaking for you, like you just really excited about?
I have to think about that. But again, I don't do a lot on the weekends. I spend time with my family and travel. But I think it's some of the apps that are coming out for golf in particular, like on my watch, like just this little Apple Watch can do things like tell me how far I hit the ball. It can tell me the distance. It talks to me. It's pretty cool what they're doing in a very inexpensive, simple app. How it can so much improve my experience for the game, right? That to me is a pretty cool thing. Like those little, I take the portable TrackMan. They run on your phone. You have a little device, and that's pretty cool stuff that's come out. That makes like some of the sport more affordable for a lot of people to learn and have a similar experience. That you just have to pay like $10 for an app or buy a device that would normally cost like $25,000. Even they're much more affordable.
That is awesome.
Comes to mind. I'm very golf oriented, if you haven't noticed.
Listen, I'm very certain. We mentioned it before the show started. I'm like that too. I have like only a handful of hobbies. I spend all my energy. If I get to choose what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose that. So I can totally respect it. And I mean, I can see it, like getting away, being outside, shooting golf. Like it sounds fun. I mean, like I said, the only golf experience I've had is Top Golf, which you have also agreed is extremely fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But I also do some stuff, that are near and dear to my heart. I feel very strongly about food insecurity in America, and so I recently joined the board of the Community Food Bank in New Jersey.
That's awesome.
Food insecurity is crazy in this country. It's the numbers are staggering if I were to share them with you. So doing stuff like that as well. So I kid about like I golf, I spend time with my family. But I also think, one of my passions as my career progresses is to do things around food insecurity and also education, because I think that kids do it. So we do a lot of stuff with Prudential as well. Another great thing about the company, we're very committed to the community. And so we do some things around tech as well.
Yeah, those are very noble causes. I understand completely where you're coming from. My children go to a school where a decent percentage of the students are on the free meal program, free lunch program, which means their family's income is under a certain, income line. And it was pretty sad when COVID happened, like to describe what the problem you're talking about, which is like these kids actually depended on school to feed them.
Yeah.
For a lot of them.
I mean, the numbers are starting. It's like 38 million Americans, food insecurity. It could be just not enough to eat, or not the right foods to eat. So I think it's really important. I know we're having fun today, but I also want to mention, there are things we should do as well to help our community.
There you go. And if someone's interested in hearing this and they care about this cause as well, can you go ahead and plug the nonprofit that you're a part of?
Yeah, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. You can Google them and you can get their site. They're the largest food bank in the state of New Jersey, and they're doing a fantastic job. And their goal isn't just to provide food. Their goal is to help people, get back on their feet so that they can get, food, fend for themselves. So they're doing some pretty cool things. So I highly recommend people looking them up and see what they're doing. You can volunteer, donate. Pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place.
No, there you go. I love it. So for those that want the exact site, is cfbnj.org. That's cfbnj.org. Stacey, I want to say thank you for sharing so much about what Prudential's up to, how you guys are modernizing not just the employee experience, but also the customer experience. Thanks for sharing a little bit about how your father mentored you, your love of golf, and of course, the nonprofit that you are currently a part of. Stacey, I want to thank you again for joining us today on IT Visionaries.
Albert, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
There you go.